Draco makes his way back to the Slytherin common room, his mind racing with thoughts about how to handle your ex-boyfriend. The anger from earlier returns, coursing through his veins and fueling his determination. He enters the common room, his steps heavy and purposeful, his mind fully focused on the task at hand. Draco storms up the stairs leading to his dorm, his anger radiating off of him in waves. His friends exchange a look, a mixture of confusion and concern on their faces. Once inside his dorm, Draco slams the door shut behind him and begins to pace the small space like a caged panther. His mind is a whirlwind of thoughts, his anger and concern for you mixing into a volatile brew. He clenches and unclenches his fists, trying to rein in his emotions. Draco mutters to himself, his voice edged with a dangerous resolve. "I'll kill him," he repeats, the words falling from his lips like a curse. His chest rises and falls as his breathing becomes heavy, his whole body tense with pent-up anger and adrenaline. He continues to pace the room, his mind racing with plans and thoughts of retribution. Draco searches through his belongings until he locates his spellbook. Flipping through the pages with practiced ease. He murmurs to himself as he browses the spells, his voice taking on a dark, almost sinister tone. "I will teach him a lesson," he mutters, his eyes scanning the pages, searching for a spell that will inflict the most pain and humiliation upon your ex-boyfriend. The knock on the door interrupts Draco's dark thoughts, and he looks up from the spellbook. "Who is it?" he calls out, his voice sharp and curt. The silence hangs heavy in the air for a moment before a voice responds.
"It's me."
The voice is cold and eerily calm, the hint of an almost serpent-like quality to it. Draco's expression hardens as he recognizes the voice on the other side of the door. "Come in," he says, his tone wary and cautious.
Tom Riddle enters the room, his gaze immediately taking in the chaotic state of Draco's dormitory. Without a hint of amusement, he sighs lightly before commenting, "You're not one for cleanliness, are you?" Tom gestures slightly towards the scattered books, clothes, and various belongings strewn across the room. "Your place is a wreck," he remarks, his tone mildly annoyed. "Have you ever considered cleaning up after yourself?"
Draco shoots Tom a dirty look, his irritation evident. "Piss off," he snaps, his tone sharp. "I'm a bit busy at the moment," he adds, his gaze returning to the spellbook as he continues flipping through the pages.
"I can see that," he responds, his gaze flickering over the open spellbook. "And what are you so busy with, if I may ask?" "Goyle sent me up here to check on you. He said you seemed agitated, to say the least."
Draco's fingers pause on a particular page in the spellbook, his eyes narrowing as he studies the text intently. "I have more important matters to deal with at the moment," he responds curtly, his tone dismissive.
Tom takes note of Draco's intense focus on the spellbook, his curiosity piqued. "Can I be of any assistance?" he asks, his tone tinged with mild interest.
Draco's eyes flicker up momentarily, his gaze locking with Tom's as he considers the question. "If someone deserved to be taught a lesson," he asks, his tone tinged with a hint of intrigue, "what would you do?"
Tom leans back against the wall, a dark gleam in his eyes as he contemplates the question. "It depends on the situation," he replies, his voice low and measured. "But I would ensure that the lesson they receive is one they won't soon forget."
"I see. And how would you go about doing that?"
Tom pushes away from the wall, crossing his arms as he looks at Draco with an almost predatory gaze. "I would identify the individual's weaknesses, their pain points. Once I have their weak spots, I would exploit them mercilessly." "As prefects, we shouldn't be having discussions like this," he starts, his voice taking on a stern tone. "But I must admit, I am curious. Who dared to cross paths and mess with the infamous Draco Malfoy?"
Draco's expression darkens, his anger clearly visible as he responds to Tom's question. "A stupid mudblood," he says, his tone cold and devoid of empathy. "And I'm about to kill him."
Tom's expression remains unreadable, though a small hint of curiosity flickers in his eyes, and he raises an eyebrow slightly. "I see," he says, his voice betraying no reaction. "Is it wise to commit such a crime within the walls of Hogwarts?"
Draco's anger is palpable as he responds to Tom, his words tinged with frustration. He hurt her, he says, his voice rising in intensity. What else am I supposed to do?
Her? He asks, his tone quizzical. Who exactly are you referring to?
Draco's expression softens slightly as he utters your name.
Tom's eyebrows shoot up in surprise as he takes a step closer, his voice filled with stunned disbelief. The Hufflepuff prefect, he repeats, his tone tinged with genuine shock.
Draco nods, his expression hardening as he recounts the incident. Yeah, he confirms, his voice a low growl. I saw her a while ago, and she had a bruise on her face. She tried to deny it, but her boyfriend was the one who did it.
Tom's expression turns serious as he moves closer, his focus shifting to the task at hand. What's the plan? He asks, his voice low and steady.
Draco's eyes narrow as he considers the next course of action. We need to teach him a lesson, he says, his tone hardening, and make sure he never lays a hand on her again.
Tom nods in agreement, a cold gleam in his eyes. I'm on board, Draco. What did you have in mind?
Draco's lips curl into a dark smirk as he gazes at the spellbook. I was doing some research earlier, he begins, his voice low and measured, and I came across something interesting.
Tom leans forward, his gaze fixed on Draco. What is it? He asks, intrigued by Draco's words.
Draco's smirk widens as he opens the spellbook to the bookmarked page, showing it to Tom. Have you ever heard of the Cruciatus Curse? He asks, his tone dripping with barely concealed excitement.
Tom's eyes widen in surprise as he snatches the spellbook from Draco's hands and scans its contents. His expression becomes one of both awe and concern as he takes in the various spells listed. How did you get this? He asks, his voice filled with shock. This has all sorts of restricted and deadly spells.
Draco smirks, enjoying Tom's reaction. I have my sources, he responds, his tone slightly smug. And since when did you care about what spells are restricted or not?
Tom rolls his eyes but remains focused on the spellbook. It's not about what spells are restricted or not, he explains. It's just, this book has some really dangerous stuff in it. You shouldn't mess around with it unless you're absolutely sure you know what you're doing.
Draco leans back, his arms folded across his chest as he challenges Tom with a stubborn expression. Well, do you have any better ideas? He asks, his tone somewhat defiant.
Tom considers Draco's words for a moment, his gaze shifting back to the spellbook. Well, not exactly, he admits, his tone hesitant. But I'm not sure if messing around with this is a good idea. You know what Dumbledore would do if he found out about this?
Frustration builds inside Draco as he stands up angrily. Fine, then I'll just have to beat him myself, he snaps, his anger and determination showing on his face. Draco's gaze locks onto Tom with a fierce determination. I can handle this on my own, he states firmly, his voice resolute. Without waiting for a response, he turns and makes his way towards the door.
Tom quickly follows Draco, reaching out and gently grabbing his arm, preventing him from leaving the room. I suggest you don't kill him, he cautions, his tone serious. And he can't go missing, not here at Hogwarts.
Draco's expression hardens, his eyes flashing with anger. For now, I'm just gonna scare him, he says through clenched teeth, his voice tense with restrained anger. But if he touches her again, I will kill him myself.
Tom releases Draco's arm, his expression a mixture of worry and resignation. Despite his reservations, he knows there's no stopping Draco when he's set his mind on something. Just be careful, he warns, his voice tinged with caution.
Draco spots Matteo in the common room and approaches him, his eyes filled with determination. Hey Matteo, he says, his tone serious. If you had to punish someone pretty cruelly, how would you do it?
Matteo considers the question for a moment, his expression turning serious. Of course, he replies simply. The Cruciatus Curse. It's a powerful way to inflict pain and make them beg for mercy.
Draco leans in closer to Matteo, his voice lowered to a whisper so that only he can hear. Is it deadly? He asks, his voice edged with a hint of concern. And could I potentially use it on someone without killing them?
Matteo nods slightly, his gaze growing intense. Yes, the Cruciatus curse isn't meant to be lethal, he explains in a hushed tone. It's designed to cause excruciating pain, but as long as you don't hold it for too long, it won't kill the person. Mateo's curiosity piqued. He chuckles softly and asks Draco with a smirk, "Are you in need of the curse?"
Draco takes a deep breath, his expression hardening. "I know it already," he replies, his voice tinged with determination, "and I'm about to use it."
Mateo's smirk fades and he looks at Draco with a mix of surprise and unease. "You sure you know how to use it?" he asks, his tone cautious. "It's pretty advanced dark magic."
Tom Riddle descends the stairs, his gaze falling on the scene before him. He notices Draco and Mateo engaged in a conversation, and a hint of suspicion crosses his face. "I hope you're not giving Draco any funny ideas," he comments.
Mateo looks up and shakes his head, his expression slightly amused. "Nah, I'm just chatting with him," he replies, his tone nonchalant, and offering a few suggestions.
Tom fixes Draco with a stern look, his expression filled with caution. "You know what you're getting into, right?" he asks, his tone serious and firm. "There are serious consequences if you use any deadly spells within the walls of Hogwarts."
Mateo watches as Tom leaves, then turns back to Draco with a hint of a smirk. "Good luck, mate," he says, his tone both serious and amused. "You're gonna need it."
Draco rushes out of the Slytherin dorms, anger and determination written all over his face. He stomps through the halls, searching for the boyfriend. Draco's eyes dart around the hallway, his gaze scanning every corner. He continues to walk, his footsteps echoing through the empty halls of Hogwarts, his mind focused on one thing. Draco quickly spots Fred and George walking down the hallway towards him. He stops them in their tracks, his expression urgent. "Hey," he says, his voice tight. "Can I ask for a favor?"
Fred and George exchange a surprised look, their curiosity piqued. "Yeah, what's up?" Fred responds, his tone friendly but tinged with curiosity.
Draco glances around the hallway, making sure nobody else is nearby. "I need your help," he says, his voice low and intense. "I'm looking for someone. A Gryffindor." Draco takes a deep breath. "I need to see the Marauders map for a minute," he says, his voice firm.
Fred and George quickly pull out the map and show it to Draco, their expressions filled with curiosity. "You owe us one," they say in unison, a smirk plastered on their faces.
Draco nods curtly, his focus already on the map. Yeah, you'll get your favor," he mutters, his attention fully on the enchanted parchment. Draco glances down at the map, his eyes quickly scanning the various dots representing students and staff. Finally, he spots the one he's looking for. "Thanks," Draco says to Fred and George, his voice barely above a whisper. Without waiting for a response, he turns on his heel and sprints down the hallway, his heart pounding in his chest.